What's up? Welcome in on this Thursday, Friday, Junior. You've almost made it to the end of the week, and we've got another incredible weekend set up in front of us. You are here. It is Lunchtime Live. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for jumping in. Feel free to comment along if you're watching along. We'll get as many of them up on the screen as we can. And again, follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. A lot of things to go over today. As per usual on a Thursday, TJ will be with me here in about 25 minutes or so. We're going to see if we can go another 5-day stretch of betting postseason football and see how it goes. So far, it's been fruitful for us. We did the 12 days of Bowlsmas. We went 9-4. Yes, you're doing the math right in your head. 9-4 for the 12 days of Bowlsmas. We also were able to go 4-2 last weekend in Super Wildcard Weekend. Did not get the Brock Purdy anytime touchdown. Did not get the long for Nico Collins. Other than that, man, we're on a pretty good little run with this. So we're going to see if we can go through both days of the divisional round and, of course, the national championship game, which is coming up quicker than you believe it is on Monday night from Miami. So plenty of stuff to talk about there. We've got news all over the sports world, and we'll get into those picks a little later on. Tomorrow's show, we're going to try and do better than we did last week with our 12 favorite player props for this round. That's a mouthful of shit to say, but I got it out, and I'm proud of myself there. So never too early in the day to pat yourself on the back. Did anything happen last night? Oh, I don't know, about midnight Eastern? You're damn right it did. Blue smoke from MetLife Stadium. A decision has been made already. I'm a little shocked by this. I'm a little shocked, but the New York Giants, not that he's going to the Giants. I'm a little shocked that it was this quickly, but barring any setbacks, John Harbaugh is expected to be named the next head coach of the New York Giants per Adam Schefter, amongst a host of others at ESPN. Schefter was first on it. Deal is not final and contract numbers are still being negotiated per Schefter. There is still a lot of work, though. There's still a lot to work through. But barring any setbacks, Harbaugh is ready to accept the Giants' job. He was supposed to interview with Tennessee today. Don't know if he even is headed to Nashville. I mean, and if you're Tennessee and he does head to Nashville, do you just meet him with the key to the damn city? Because that's what it would take at this point. Listen, I don't think any of us are surprised. I don't think any of us thought for a second that John Harbaugh was going to, after 18 seasons in Baltimore, that John Harbaugh was going to go take a reclamation project like the Arizona Cardinals or the Las Vegas Raiders or the Tennessee Titans. But hey, shoot your shot, man. But all things pointing to him being the head coach of the New York Giants. And he's only 63 years old. Theoretically, we could see Harbaugh coaching a decade plus in New York. And we've talked about this a bunch of times. You've got Jackson Dart. You've got Malik Neighbors. You've got Cam Skattebo. Those two together, Harbaugh and Skattebo, are going to be something to see. But is Cam Skattebo not like a John Harbaugh type player, a throwback, big physical? Harbaugh's had success with younger quarterbacks. Say what you want about their recent struggles in Baltimore and the postseason record with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, but a lot more wins than losses. Another rookie quarterback, kind of unheralded, way unheralded, if you could say this. Guy who will forever be on my not favorite athletes list, Joe Flacco. Another guy he had success with coming in as a rookie quarterback. Is Jackson Dart the next one? Who is the offensive coordinator at that point? Who is the defensive coordinator at that point? How much of Harbaugh's staff is just going to move their way to New York? I'm happy for Giants fans. I think you should be absolutely stoked. I saw something floating around Twitter today, and it was funny in its general context. We talked about it a couple weeks ago after that Steelers-Ravens game and all the low-life pieces of trash out there in the world sending death threats to a guy because he missed a field goal in Tyler Loop. Those are the worst of the worst kind of people out there. People that definitely should not be watching on sports, definitely should not be gambling on sports. If you take it to that level, you've got other issues. That being said, I did see a funny meme this morning that Tyler Loop was up in the Giants Ring of Honor. As thank you. That's what got us an actual competent head coach. I said it a couple times this year. I wanted to see the Giants go forward with Brian Daboll. I wanted to see what Brian Daboll could do with a healthy nucleus on offense of those three guys, which he didn't get a chance to do because of injury and then getting fired. But in a division that up until this year and last year, we hadn't seen a repeat champion in almost 2 decades. This is a very stabilizing force for an organization that needs a stabilizing force. And John Harbaugh was run out because they failed to have success in the postseason, and the last couple of years have been still really good. The Giants in that time period have been 7-27. The only good thing the Giants have done was drafting Malik Neighbors and Abdul Carter and Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart. They've drafted well. They've got some pieces in place. Not surprised that that's where he's likely to end up. Again, it's not official. It's not signed. It's not done yet. I would imagine this contract is going to make him, especially coaching for the Giants, I would imagine this contract makes him the highest paid coach in the NFL. If not, he's going to be number 2 or 3 at the most. And I think he's worth the investment. He interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons on Monday. And again, as I said, he had plans to meet with the Titans today. New York was the first team to have him in his facility for an interview. He arrived Wednesday morning, stayed into the early evening before returning to his Baltimore area home on Giants owner Steve Tisch's private jet. It was a full court press from the Giants. So Giants fans out there, does this excite you? If it doesn't, then maybe they have killed your love for the game of football, because this should excite you. Now what happens from there is the question. As we know, there's still 8 other openings. You've got interesting situations with Kevin Stefanski. A lot of people are linking him to Baltimore. I heard Pat McAfee and the guys talking about this morning on their program, that, it's in Kevin Stefanski's situation, you can go be an offensive coordinator. Well, let's take a look at the offensive coordinator jobs are out. So if you're a guy like Kevin Stefanski and you don't want to follow a legend like John Harbaugh in Baltimore, you're a guy like Mike McDaniel, maybe doesn't want to go right back into a bad situation coaching the Cleveland Browns, for example. Philadelphia, the Chargers, the Lions, and the Bucks all have openings to be offensive coordinators. Now, I don't know exactly what the language is in Stefanski's contract, so I'm going to assume this part, so bear with me here if I'm not accurate. But Kevin Stefanski goes to be the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, Lions, Bucks, or Chargers. He's an offensive coordinator. He's not a head coach. So that means Cleveland's still going to pay what they owe him, and he can make some money and maybe go on a Super Bowl run and then call his next shot. Look at what we're hearing right now with the Rams. I think we're all safe to assume that the Rams, unless Chris Shula says he doesn't want to, are going to lose their defensive coordinator, Chris Shula. I think to Pittsburgh. Mac thinks to Miami, which obviously makes a lot of sense. By the way, Mac will make an appearance on Lunchtime Live tomorrow. I found that out right as we were going on the air today. So TJ will be with me in about 15 minutes or so. Mac on Lunchtime Live tomorrow. But there's another name that's come out, and he's actually been requested already. The first request by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's Nate Scheelhaase of the Rams. He's their passing game coordinator. And they did a fantastic story on him this weekend. It popped out of what goes into the process of building a game plan for the Rams. And Nate Scheelhaus is the guy that basically does a lot of the input into the computer system so it's ready to go when they present the game plan to the guys on Wednesday mornings. And his name came out, and all weekend, like, his name was butchered. And I'm like, I know this name. Why do I not remember exactly where? And you know this is a sports fan. This happens to all of us all the time. Last night, Mac was going college basketball coach circa late, early 2000s, mock turtleneck, and I couldn't remember the damn name of the coach who used to wear those all the time, and it drove me nuts because I hate those damn things. Says the guy that you rarely ever see with sleeves on. It's one of those interesting things here. Anytime this happens to you as you get a little bit older in your sports brain. Well, Nate Scheelhaus was a quarterback at the University of Illinois and did pretty good when he was there. Kind of dynamic, really smart. Obviously, you have to be to work for Sean McVay. And I remember this. I'm going to ask T when he comes on because he'll probably remember it too. When he was at Illinois, none of us knew how to pronounce his name. We ended up calling him Steel Kahasi there for a while. This dude is incredibly smart. And if you haven't watched that piece that ESPN did on him this weekend, it's about a 4-minute piece. I'm pretty sure we retweeted it on our X page at Mike Arana Show. This dude is climbing the ranks fast, very intelligent. So much to the point where the first request that the Steelers made to fill Mike Tomlin's vacancy was to ask for permission to talk to Nate Scheelhaus. Now, is he ready to make that jump from a passing game coordinator to a head coach? I don't know. But if you're the Tennessee Titans and he comes from the Shanahan McVay trickle-down tree, and you've got Cam Ward, the number 1 draft pick, and a whole lot of roster to build in Tennessee, maybe that's a guy you go after. But the fact that the Steelers want to talk to him, that should tell you everything that you need to know. Vegas Mac checking in. He would rubber stamp that pick. And we've talked a lot about the Steelers situation. The Steelers are not going to hire Mike McCarthy. And I think Mike McCarthy does get a job this go round. And I think Mike McCarthy, as much as we like to bust his balls about failing to manage a play clock properly in late game situations, when we talk about, John Harbaugh in the light that we talk about John Harbaugh, well, Mike McCarthy has been just as successful. Winning percentage, almost equal. Seasons as a head coach, almost equal. Mike McCarthy, 1 more. Playoff record, McCarthy's 11-11, Harbaugh 12-10. 7 division titles for McCarthy, 5 for Harbaugh, 1 Super Bowl each. And I believe, if I remember correctly here, see if I can type and talk at the same time. Mike McCarthy is from the Pennsylvania area. He is from Pittsburgh. But Mac, on this show especially, and those of you out there, Steeler faithful, you know this. We all know it because they've only had 3 head coaches in 70 years. So as much as Mike McCarthy might look like a surface fit to somewhere like Pittsburgh, I think, is going to go with a Chris Shula, a Nate Scheelhaus, a Jesse Minter. Because that's what they believe in. And let's be honest about the situation in Pittsburgh next year. You've got Will Howard and you've got Mason Rudolph. Aaron Rodgers hasn't said he's done playing, but I'm pretty sure because Tomlin's gone and Tomlin's not going to be coaching anywhere, I think it's safe to assume that he's not going to be playing in Pittsburgh. I still think the Minnesota thing for Aaron Rodgers is still a possibility. But as we know with Aaron, he's going to take his time. He's going to do his thing. We're not going to know for a while. But we still got 8 other jobs out there. And Harbaugh didn't waste any time. And I say good on him, good on the Giants. It appears from what we can tell that it was an absolute full court press. Great. I think if you're a Giants fan today, you woke up going, let's effing go. Let's go to September. Let's go. Very intriguing to see how that thing plays out. How the other 8 jobs play out, I'm interested to see what happens in Atlanta. We've talked about that a lot. Yes, you have quarterback questions there. Penix coming off of an injury. Cousins is no spring chicken. You like that? He's no spring chicken. But with Bijan Robinson and Drake London and some of the other pieces, Kyle Pitts. Next year tells us that Kyle Pitts will have 6 touchdowns next year. Follow the progression. If you know, you know. I think Atlanta's a really intriguing job. I think Cleveland is kind of an intriguing job in a little bit of the sense that, again, first team, and I can't remember exactly how long, but it hasn't happened very often at all, to have their leading tackler, their leading passer, their leading rusher, their leading receiver all be rookies. And we know the defense is good. I think a key part in Cleveland, if I'm taking the Cleveland job, and every head coach wants to bring in their own people, and we understand that. But I think if I'm coming into Cleveland, I am going to ask ownership if they're going to bring me on as a head coach to make sure that Jim Schwartz is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. Because the only reason that that team has been somewhat watchable over the better part of the last, some of you out there are going the better part of their entire existence. I can understand that. You know, Huntington Bank Field has never hosted a playoff game of any form. And never will, because they're trying to build a new stadium. But I'm making sure that Jim Schwartz stays there because I'm not messing with the defense. And if Jim Schwartz can get along with you and you're the incoming head coach, that's a feather in your cap. Figure out this offense and get some consistency out of Cleveland. There's some working pieces there. It is Cleveland. I get it. Arizona, a mess. Quarterback problems there in a draft where we know it's getting thinner by the day at quarterback. So what do the Cardinals do? I don't think it's a very attractive job. As much as from personal interest as a 49er fan, I would love to see Clint Kubiak not be in Seattle. If you're Clint Kubiak, I am telling you, you do not want the Arizona job. Not anytime soon. Are there pieces to work with? Absolutely. Trey McBride. Anybody that's watched this show long enough knows exactly what I think of Trey McBride. He's a stud. Michael Wilson this year, an absolute stud year for them. But we know it's the Cardinals. It's not an easy job. It's never been an easy job. And as most people will say, with ownership in place the way it is, it's going to continue to probably stay the same. There are some pieces there. There's only 32 of these jobs. Somebody's going to want it. But if you're Clint Kubiak, and we talked about this, Mac and I went kind of through the list last night. If you're Clint Kubiak and you're basically linked to every open job right now, that shows your demand in the marketplace. And the catch is you stay in Seattle too long, maybe the offense regresses a little bit, and you're not as hot of a commodity. I think Clint Kubiak's going to be a really good coach. I just hope he doesn't have to start that journey at Arizona because he's going to have to go back probably and be an offensive coordinator somewhere else. Not because he can't coach. It's not anybody can coach this Cardinals team. Keep in mind, if you want a proper perspective of the history of the Cardinals, if you're not totally familiar with it, because you had a million better things to do in your life. The Houston Texans have as many playoff wins as the Arizona Cardinals franchise does. That'll tell you something. We've got some interesting stuff this weekend. Last weekend, DraftKings on their Instagram account posted a days since last playoff win for all the teams that made the postseason. Shortest was obviously the Eagles. That number is going to go into the 700s now. They were at 335. Buffalo, the Rams, the Texans, the Niners. The Packers, that streak is now going to move to close to 1,000. But we've got some teams on this list playing their first game on Saturday. Denver, it's been 3,625 days since the Broncos have won a playoff game. They get a chance to end that first on Saturday, the first game. And we're going to get into those games here in just a little bit when TJ joins me. But the Broncos, 3,625 days since their last playoff win. The Seattle Seahawks, 2,197 days since their last playoff win. Both of them get a chance to end that streak right away on Saturday. Chargers, 2,561 days and counting now. The Patriots ended their streak of 2,533 days. There's a lot of interesting stuff this weekend. There's a lot of interesting storylines. The numbers that are out on a lot of these games, very, very interesting. Other interesting random shit that I found out. Sean McVay is going to coach his 15th playoff game as the head coach of the Rams against the Bears this weekend in freezing temperatures. And we've got some data for that for you. In 15 playoff games as a head coach, Sean McVay has never played a team more than one time in the postseason. That's wild if you think about it. Falcons, Cowboys, Saints, Patriots, that was a Super Bowl. Seahawks, Packers, Cardinals, Bucks, Niners, Bengals, Super Bowl. Lions, Vikings, Eagles, Panthers, and Bears. Oh my. 15 different teams in 15 different games as a head coach in the NFL. Another interesting stat as far as how you're playing and starting to form your weekend bets. And again, some of these numbers are not going to stay where they're at. We talk about it all the time on the show. If you have a feeling and you like a number where it's at, jump on it. Don't wait. Niners Seahawks spread is an interesting one. 7.5. We've seen it drop to 6.5. It's kind of holding steady right now at 7. Here's another thing to factor in while you're thinking about your bets this weekend. Josh Allen, career in the playoffs, 0-4 against the Chiefs. Josh Allen is now 8-2 in the playoffs against everybody else. Something to think about. There's still a site out there where you can get Josh Allen at plus money to score a touchdown this weekend against the Broncos. We've got a lot of stuff. I think this weekend, the games are going to be absolutely fantastic. This is my favorite weekend because, as we know on Wild Card Weekend, we can get a team in there or two teams in there that, not to pick on the NFC South, but typically it's the NFC South and sometimes can be like a second wild or a wild card team from the AFC North, typically. Sometimes the AFC South follows this. The AFC South right now is a really fun division. And then there's the Titans. But divisional round is always where I think we get the absolute best football. And it's always interesting to see, especially in this new format, the teams that were on byes. Seattle and Denver. How do they respond here? Both of them at massive advantages because they have San Francisco and Buffalo coming into their cities, respectively, on short rest. A couple other headlines here. And again, TJ will be with me here at the top of the hour in just a few minutes. We'll get into our game picks, talk about the national title game and everything else. Jonathan Kuminga, according to sources, and this is from a report from Anthony Slater and Shams Charania of ESPN, has demanded a trade away from the Warriors. Here we go with this bullshit again. On the first day that he became eligible to be moved, which was today, fifth-year forward Jonathan Kuminga has demanded a trade away from the Golden State Warriors. I've heard that one before. Kuminga was not allowed to be traded until Thursday because of the terms of his contract he signed this summer. The NBA trade deadline is a little less than a month away. It's February 5th. I think the Warriors have a group on this team that is good enough to make a run in the West. Are they good enough to beat Oklahoma City in a 7-game series? Are they good enough to beat Houston? Are they good enough to beat Minnesota, Denver? I would say, as they're currently constructed, definitely not. But this Jonathan Kuminga thing has stalled the Warriors' attempts to do anything for the better part of the last 2 years. I know they're trying to get the best that they could possibly get for him, but it's time to get him the hell out of town. Trade him for a bag of balls if you have to at this point. Because you've got a team with a core of Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green and Steph Curry that are kind of stuck in neutral here. We've heard a lot of rumors over the last couple weeks that there is a Michael Porter Jr. deal fairly imminent that would involve potentially the Sacramento Kings and possibly another team. Which in the long and short of it, the most realistic scenario I saw had Keon Ellis and Michael Porter Jr. going to the Warriors. Buddy Hield was getting shipped out in that deal, as was Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga would end up with the Kings. It sounds like the Nets would try and hoard more draft picks and try and pull their best Sam Presti, but it's still the Nets. But kind of interesting, and I'm not surprised that the first day he was eligible to be traded because of the poison pill rule, that he's going to go ahead and make it about him again. The Warriors have been very coy in the way they make moves. He's $24.3 million team option for next season. Can be used in a lot of different ways. We're not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of all the different ways to move money in the NBA because it's confusing as all hell. Warriors have also been linked to Trey Murphy of New Orleans. Apparently, New Orleans, that's the one place that they're holding pat, and they don't want to get rid of any of their Trey Murphy type of players. So, the Warriors and Jonathan Kuminga are officially on the clock now. Again, the trade deadline is February 5th. We've got some golf going on. The season has started in Hawaii. I may or may not be sweating one hell of a group of first-round bets here. Michael Kim out in front right now through 12, 5 under. Nick Taylor, 5 under through 8. Alex Smalley, one back in third at -4. Seamus Power needs to wake back up. He was doing really good. He was at the top. Now he's 13th, -2. Why am I saying Seamus Power? Maybe that's one of the guys. It is one of the guys. So is Nick Taylor, though. We're in good shape there. I have to have a better golf betting season for 2 reasons. Number one, because Vegas Mac won't shut the hell up about beating me for the second year in Mike versus Mac in a row. And number 2, I had a terrible golf year last year. So we've acquired a different group of golf insiders, if you will, that we're tracking this year. So hopefully we'll get some of them on here in a little bit on the program as we get deeper into this year and into the offseason. Hey, Clayton Kershaw, by the way. Just when you thought he was done, he's not. But he's not coming back to pitch for the Dodgers, Dodger fans. You can deal with life. He is not going to pitch for the Dodgers. I would say ever again, but knowing the Dodgers are probably going to get late in the season and not have enough healthy pitchers because that's kind of what they do. Maybe Clayton Kershaw is staying loose by pitching in the World Baseball Classic just in case the Dodgers need him. Alden Gonzalez from ESPN. Clayton Kershaw may not have thrown his last pitch after all. MLB announced Thursday that Kershaw has committed to pitch for Team USA for the upcoming World Baseball Classic, which begins on March 4th. Kershaw told MLB Network, I just want to be the insurance policy if anybody needs a breather or they need me to pitch back-to-back. Or if they don't need me to pitch at all, I'm just there to be there. I just want to be a part of this group. I learned a long time ago, you want to be a part of great things. This team seems like a really fun, awesome group. All these coaches I've played with are good teammates, good friends of mine, so it'll be really fun. I think that's cool. I don't get as much into the World Baseball Classic as a lot of people do. I'll watch Olympic hockey. I'm going to watch the hell out of Olympic hockey. And NBC and Peacock are hooking us up for the men's and women's U.S. Olympic hockey teams in Milan. We're going to get to see them a lot. The World Baseball Classic just doesn't do much for me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they jam it into spring training, which makes sense, but it's just not something that moves the needle for me. Never has been. I think it's cool. Starters on the U.S. team: Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, Logan Webb, Joe Ryan, Nolan McLean, and Clay Holmes have also committed to pitch for Team USA. Mark DeRosa still your manager at Team USA. So kind of cool if you want one last Clayton Kershaw fix, I guess. I wouldn't be shocked if Kershaw ends up coming out of retirement to pitch for the Dodgers. Again, when the Dodgers need pitching help. Again, late in the season, but you can't argue with the results. Somebody's got to beat the damn Dodgers. We talked about it yesterday. Mac's team finally spent some money. And I think a hell of a move for Boston to bring in Ranger Suarez. The best pitcher that was on the market. Don't at me. It's not Framber Valdez. And from what we saw last year, Framber Valdez does not look like he's much of a high-quality teammate either. So there's that also. What happens? Pittsburgh, where do they go? Can Brock Purdy defeat his kryptonite this weekend in the NFL? Mike McDonald. Fred Warner. We talked about him last night. His practice window is open. Per reports today, he is considered a game time decision unless ruled out ahead of time. I think he's going to play. He might not be out there on every down. He might not be out there, period. But if you're the 49ers and you've been repeatedly kicked in the junk this year and getting George Kittle lost for basically the rest of this year and pretty much most of next year, we know guys are coming back off Achilles faster and faster since they're happening more often, more data, more different ways. Will he be the same player after? Those are all things, obviously, the 49ers have to weigh in this period. But I wouldn't put it past the Niners to put him in uniform, even if they know they're probably not going to play him a ton, if at all. I think that game Saturday night is going to be absolutely fantastic. And T and I are going to talk about this, but there's a lot of people, and we get it, and it happens in sports gambling all the time. We talk about it, recency bias. One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given was going into the NFL playoffs last season. And you have to remember a couple of things when you're betting in the playoffs. Number one, the regular season is not an indicator of postseason success. And that sounds obvious, but when it comes to placing your wagers and which sides of the table you want to be on this weekend, the regular season has nothing to do with what happens here. Number two, week to week, there's often overreactions. Where are we seeing one of those? Already with the way the Pittsburgh and Houston spread is moving. And it's not moving a lot. But there was a lot of people that just assumed last week that the Texans were going to manhandle the Steelers because their defense was better. It was partially true, obviously true with the way the game score came out, but that doesn't mean that the Texans defense is going to go up and manhandle New England. They could. They're that good. But again, as I mentioned, leading into Monday night's game, we're just assuming that the Texans offense can do enough to score them points to win games. And that's the key in the postseason, is you can't sit here in the postseason and use something that you saw in week one of the postseason as a direct indicator to what's actually going to happen. So keep that in mind as you're looking at these games. What you saw last week doesn't mean you're going to see it again this week. And I bring up the Seahawks as TJ jumps into the fold here with us. What's up, man?
It's Friday Junior, man. You got any cold ones over there?
Oh, there's always cold ones over here. We're going to pour one out for our homie Fred Warner I was just talking about. But T, the one thing I was kind of finishing up on there, ironically, before we get into making some picks for these games, is trying to get people to remember that regular season success doesn't always indicate playoff success. And what you see in week one of the playoffs doesn't mean you're going to see it in week two of the playoffs. And specifically talking about the Niners and Seahawks spread, I think what we're getting is a huge overreaction to the week 18 game. And as I told Mac last night, Billy V checking in here, as I told Mac last night, we got to remember the Seahawks and Niners have played 8 quarters against each other this year, and it's been 23-20. The Seahawks have scored 13 points in both games against the Niners. One they won, one they lost. So as we get into our table of all tables here, I think that's important for people to remember here. Week 1 does not translate to week 2, and the prior 18 weeks do not translate to any of these.
Well, and especially because you're talking about two teams who know each other so well. Like, that they're going to get each other's best game. It doesn't matter where they're playing. It doesn't matter who's really playing. Like, as far as personnel goes, these teams are so close that oh my goodness. When I saw that there wasn't much correction in that, I was really flummoxed because I didn't know do they know something that I don't know? I mean, that's the kind of reaction that I had.
I had to put this back up again because I just reread it as you were saying that, and you're dead on. Billy V is a guy we refer to on this program as the Reaper. When we bust Max balls about giving up on his team early, Billy V takes the cake. I do like that I know he was trying to say superstitious. Hell yeah, I am. Suspicious is also something that Billy V is, and that's why we love him. But as we go into this, do you have your trusty coin, which has been very good to us?
I do have my trusty coin.
Somewhere. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, we did the 12 days of Bowlsmiths, which was actually 13 games. We went 9-4. We each made our favorite plays for the games. If we were split on one, we flipped a coin. That's the one we went with. Sound logic, right? You're laughing, but it actually is, because last week we did it again and we went 4-2. We didn't get a Brock Purdy anytime touchdown. We didn't get the longest reception of over 20 yards from Nico Collins, which he would have had before he left the game concussed. So we went 4-2. So in using this method, we've gone 16-6 in 22 games. I mean, I'm not going to, not 16-6, that doesn't math right. 13-6 in 19 games. That's a little better. Math is hard. Let's get started with Buffalo and Denver, though. You like the over in this game. I like Josh Allen for an anytime touchdown at plus money here. Your first thoughts, Broncos trying to end a streak, as I mentioned off the top of the show, of 3,600 something days, 3,625 days since the Broncos have last won a playoff game. What do you think off the top? Broncos, Patriots, Saturday.
Well, I think they definitely have the right guy in charge to lead this team in Sean Payton. He's been outstanding since he's been in Denver. I'm a little concerned about the experience factor. I don't know how much that's going to play into it, because you have a Buffalo team that has been in this position before, and you have a Denver team that this is sort of new to. So I think that those are two factors that we need to take into it. Denver is at home. That's great. I like that for the Broncos. But what I also like for the Broncos, when we talk about the inexperience, is the inexperience can be an advantage. We talked about this with like Macklin Celebrini, and we talked about this with the Anaheim Ducks, how these teams they don't have any muscle memory. They just go out there and play, and if they make a mistake, it's a mistake, and we move on. That could be a situation with the Denver Broncos.
Be a goldfish. Just be a goldfish.
Yeah.
Have none of these guys watched Ted Lasso? It's true though, and it's absolutely true. Like it's a next play mentality, and I think we're seeing the teams that are having success here really dive into that. So I've got Allen for an anytime touchdown. You've got Buffalo and Denver over 45.5. So let's make the first flip of flips here.
All right.
I'm going to use a different site to make this bet than I have before, because I'm starting to like these numbers already.
All right. Heads, it's you, and tails, it's me. And I don't have my coin, but I have a random. I have the $50 American Buffalo virtual coin for this flip.
All right. So flip away with the coin that we can't see.
And it is tails.
All right. So we are going to go over on this site. 46 is where we're going to play that one.
All right.
Niners and Seahawks, we were talking about this a couple minutes ago. Obviously, the recency bias here, I think, is playing a little bit of a factor into this. Other thing, too, Brock Purdy's never lost in Seattle. But when I look at this, and I've mentioned this a couple of times before, in his games against Mike McDonald defenses, Brock Purdy, 255, 4 interceptions, Christmas, when McDonald was still the DC of the Ravens. Then 255, 3 touchdowns, no picks at Seattle. 159, a touchdown and a pick. That was in Santa Clara. That was the 2024 season. 277, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, week 1 this year at Seattle in a game that the Niners won. And then 127, no touchdowns and an interception last time they played in week 18. So I think the fact that these teams have played, again, they know each other well. There's obviously rivalry history. A lot of the participants in that are no longer here. I think Ricky Pearsall is a massive key for the 49ers, because Seattle had no answer for Ricky Pearsall in the first game. If Pearsall plays, I think that definitely changes this, but I think the spread at 7.5, and I'll get a little more into the details, make some official picks tomorrow, but I think the spread at 7.5 is a little egregious here.
Well, I think it might also be an overreaction to injuries and personnel that may not be playing or are not playing. So,
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I don't think you can look at that. I think this is just like any rivalry game that we talk about. But I think that one of the keys for Seattle is going to be, are they going to be able to run the ball effectively like they did last time? Because they ran the ball fantastic in the last game. Charbonnet and Walker, that two-headed monster is great for Seattle. And what that does is it takes pressure off of Darnold. He doesn't have to make as many decisions. I mean, he played nearly a perfect game.
Yeah, and I think and I mentioned this one last night too to Mac when we were talking about our biggest questions of this upcoming round. And when you look at it, I think the matchups here that are key for me, obviously Brock Purdy against Mike McDonald. I just gave you the supporting numbers on that. The other thing is here we got to remember, and again, I gave you the scores of the two times that they've played each other. First game, Sam Darnold was 16 of 23 for 150 yards. No touchdowns, no picks. Averaged 6.5 yards of completion. Second game, 20 of 26, 198. No touchdowns, no picks. Obviously, the ground game did it. The other thing I think people are forgetting about in that last game, Christian McCaffrey doesn't literally fumble that reception out of his hands right to a DB, and we're talking about a 3-point game with 8 minutes left. So I think that's the other thing is what does Sam Darnold do against Robert Saleh's defense? And you can go, well, whether Warner plays or not, and they're already banged up. But again, there's nothing you can throw at the San Francisco team that they haven't seen. I know the place is going to rock on Saturday night, but if you're going to give me the Niners and Kyle Shanahan, and you're going to give me a touchdown and a hook, I'm taking that all day long. And I'm taking it just based on the two matchups that we've seen this year. A 4-point win for the Niners, a 10-point win for the Seahawks. We're both on San Francisco. We're both on San Francisco plus 7.5. Let's move on to Houston and New England. This is a game we're different on. I like the Patriots at the number of -3, which you can get in most places today. You like the Texans at plus 3.5, which there still are a few out there. What's your first thoughts when you think about Texans and Patriots?
I was just really impressed with the Texans defense. I've been really impressed with what they've been able to do recently. I thought that Pittsburgh game was over after it was 17-6. I thought it was over then, even though there was still 11 minutes left. Never felt that the lead was in danger. This offense is kind of hit or miss for me. Woody Marks has been outstanding, but the passing game has just been kind of hit or miss for me. That's my only concern with Houston. But the defense I'm riding with this defense here.
Betting money on this one. 64% of the bets, 62% of the money, and this is on about 26,000 track bets on the Houston side. 36 and 38 bets and money on the New England side. This number is a hard 3 everywhere. So you're either getting a field goal or you're leaving a field goal here, depending on which side of this you are. I think this is the ultimate matchup of what you saw last week doesn't necessarily pertain to what you see this week. I still do have my concerns of New England. I think no Christian Gonzalez, which it sounds like that's the way it's trending, as well as no Nico Collins, are basically a straight wash there. Can Christian Kirk have another big game for the Texans? Can they get Higgins down the field? Can they continue to utilize Dalton Schultz in the passing game? And how does Drake May handle his second playoff game? Because New England's offense didn't really blow the doors off of the Chargers last week. They just blew the doors off of the Chargers offensive line from a defensive standpoint, and that's where the game went. So we are completely split. So why don't you flip the virtual coin that none of us can see again, sir?
All right. Well, you're going to love this because I'm going with the John Adams dollar here. So in honor of the Patriots. And this one comes up tails.
So we are taking the Texans at a +3 because that's
starting to
all
be scared.
That was another one though, and again, how many times have we talked about this? This is the biggest piece of whatever little betting advice we have, which comes from guys way smarter than us in the betting space. Just so you guys understand that out there in audience land, don't wait on numbers. Because I can guarantee you that Niner Seahawk number is not going to stay at 7.5. I would honestly expect it to drop below 7. And if it doesn't, great. I mean, that's fine. It gives me plenty of opportunities to try and double down. I think this Texans-Patriots one is another interesting one because at 3.5 or 3, Doesn't sound like much, but as you and I know, the hook can get you every time. So we're going with the Texans plus the points there. I think legitimately that's a coin flip game, so I don't think you can end up on a bad side of this. Rams and Bears. I dropped a stat out before you jumped in, T. Sean McVay is coaching his 15th playoff game as the head coach of the Rams against his 15th different opponent in this game, which I thought was kind of mind blowing. The other thing in this game that I think is extremely mind blowing and something to factor in here, and talking about how results don't always equate from week to week. The current forecast for Sunday's game between the Bears and the Rams is supposed to be 20 degrees with 18-mile-an-hour wind and a 55% chance of snow. Matthew Stafford's last 10 games outdoors in the rain/snow, 1-9, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Against a defense that, yes, they're not very good. The Rams could have 600 yards in this game. They could also turn the ball over 3 or 4 times in this one.
Yep.
What do you take when you think Bears, your Bears, and the Rams in this one? What's your first thoughts that jump out?
Well, my first thoughts to jump out is how just incredible this run has been for Chicago this year. I was front of the line of I don't believe this team is going to do jack crap this year. And I was completely dead wrong. This team looks rejuvenated, and the fact that they keep getting down in games is a little bit of a concern for me. But the fact that they keep on pulling these games out of their rear ends in some cases is fascinating to me. And I'm not completely on the Caleb Williams is going to the Hall of Fame boat yet, but he is trending in a very positive direction, and that is very good news for Chicago.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I can't wait to see the scene in Chicago on Sunday. You know, I dropped the list at the beginning of the show of days since last playoff win, and the number one team on that list to start that list going into wildcard weekend was the Bears at 5,473 days. The Panthers are now on a streak that's over 3,600, and obviously, as I mentioned, the Broncos now have the longest days since last playoff win with a chance to still avenge that. I really can't wait to see this one. I think all 4 of the games this weekend are going to be fantastic. It's usually what you get in the divisional round. Not often, especially in recent years, that we see blowouts in this round. You're on the Bears money line, which I'm also on in a couple different places. I also, in this game, though, with the way the Rams like to attack you from a defensive standpoint, and I do believe in Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator of the Rams, a lot. I think Colston Loveland under his yards total, which is last I looked was 55.5. Here is a good play because I think the Rams know. Obviously, you have to deal with the ground game of the Bears. That's clear. But I think the Rams also know that a key cog into them moving the ball down the field and getting the ball to DJ Moore and some of their other playmakers is Colston Loveland. So I think the Rams, knowing what we know about the Rams and how they do things, I think the Rams are going to try and take Loveland out of the fold, and typically they can be very successful at that. I don't think they're going to win the game, but I like the angle on the receiving yards for Colston Loveland under this week. A lot of people I've seen in the last 24 hours on him to go over. His last 5 games, 63, 30, 94, 91, and a $137. Right now the number's at 57.5. I liked it under 55.5. So let's flip the virtual coin once again here and see which way we go on this one.
All right, so I'm going with a traditional dime because my boy Caleb Williams drops dimes. And it came up as heads, and so we are going with Colston Loveland under. He had a bananas fourth quarter the other night too, just straight up bananas.
Yeah,
but I think this is a good pick. I'm interested to see how the Bears go about, or I'm sorry, how the Rams go about containing Caleb Williams, because if they can do that, that's going to be huge, especially for this bet. It's going to be huge.
All right, let's move on to the national title game here. I'm updating the bet as we speak, so we're dropping this bad boy today. All right, Loveland under 57.5 yards is where we're playing him.
Even better.
National title game, your boy Ruben Payne and that crazy Hurricanes defense playing host as the road team in the national title game to this machine that is Indiana trying to finish the season 16-0. First thoughts, Monday night, our final Monday night with football on it for the year. Miami is the scene, Hoosiers and Canes. What do you think?
Well, just Indiana has a chance to just be this team that just blows through the regular season like nothing. I mean, they had the Iowa game, the Penn State game. Oregon was close the first time they played Oregon was close for a minute. But other than that, they've just been gangbusters the entire year, and it's been very, very impressive to see this Indiana team play football. But every game that they've played during this playoff, it's been like, okay, the defense of Alabama, okay, the defense of Oregon. Now it's the defense of Miami. Can you do it again? Because I think that this is going to be the best defense they've played in this tournament so far. And Miami's playing at home, so that's going to may play a little bit into it. It's a great matchup. It's a strength on strength matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we kind of laid out some of the stats on last night's show. We talked about you for a lot of last night's show, which we need to get to.
Yeah, I heard.
in a couple of minutes before we get out of here. Indiana attempting to end a 29-year drought in college football without a first-time national champion. The last team to win their first national championship, 1996, the Florida Gators. So interested to see this one. All right, we're both on Indiana on this one, and I think for the same reasons. Every time we've doubted Indiana, they've answered, and they've answered in a big way. I do believe that Miami defense is fantastic, but I think in my X factor, again, being Charlie Becker this week, is a guy that can create some space between Black and Hemby and Cooper and Surratt. I think he's a guy that creates space there, and I'm not going against a downhill freight train. So we're going to flip the coin to see if we add the total. You like Indiana. I like Indiana. You also like this game over 47.5, and I actually very much agree with you there. So flip the coin to see if we add it or don't add it to the bet, but we are on Indiana minus 8.5.
All right, so heads we add the total, and tails we don't add it, and it came up tails.
Well, we already added it, so that was a completely meaningless flip. So if you're following it, this is what we're laying out for 5 games over 3 consecutive days. We're starting with Buffalo and Denver over 46, San Francisco plus 7.5. Then we move to Sunday, Houston plus 3, Colston Loveland under 57.5 yards, Indiana minus 8.5, and Indiana and Miami over 47.5. You put those all together. Again, when we do these are $5 parlays. We're trying to have some fun. We're not trying to break the bank. Plus 43.10, so $5 will pay you a cool $2.20 and 50 cents. And we need to get TJ the 50 cents because he needs actual coins, not virtual coins. I should send you all the pennies I've been hoarding for the last year.
That'd be amazing. But Indiana has a chance here to make history because they have a chance to be the first school, I believe, to have an undefeated football and basketball national championship team.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing, and we're going to get into this debate, the three of us. We started it a little bit last night. What constitutes a great game to you? The one thing I want to see that would put the cherry on top of the football season for me is I want to see Indiana fall behind in this game. Because I want to see how they react to falling behind in the game. Because we haven't seen it. So that's the only thing I haven't seen from this Indiana team, and I can go, no, they checked every damn box. That's one of the best football teams we've ever seen in college football. Final thing, because we're running out of time here. So last night we came up with a strategy and a solution here. The Caleb Williams Jersey Gate scenario. You text me while we were figuring this out that you might have an answer. So I asked Mac, I said, all right, what do we do? Because every week that the Bears are in the playoffs, TJ owes us 3 times wearing this obnoxious orange Caleb Williams jersey, which is what we want to get to you. He says that we should leave it like that and give you an expiration date of probably the beginning of next football season. And you have to show up at a bunch of random events. Kind of like when you like walking down the beach and looking at independent sculptors and artists on the beach, like you have to wear it doing that, and somebody has to either film you or take enough verifiable photos that we know you were actually there. We know you go to a lot of shows. We know you go to a lot of games. It would be funny, hey, who's this a-hole at the front row of the Nate Bargatze concert in a Caleb Williams jersey in Southern California? So you might have a contingency plan, and it is you that has to do the deed. So I'm going to give you the option. How do you want to settle this? Do you need to be wearing this jersey at a random Tuesday Angels day game during the summertime? Or are we going to have you get the Caleb Williams jersey and you're wearing it until it expires?
I will be happy to wear it to any random events that I need to wear it to, as long as
there
I
you go, folks.
procure it shortly.
We're procuring it for you. I just we need to make sure we have enough events for you to go to wear this randomly.
We'll have plenty of events. Once again, no shade. Like, I was completely wrong, and he has done an impressive job. I hope that the ride continues, because the longer this goes, I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you did, the Brian Urlacher showing up at the tailgate party. For Chicago deserves this. Their fans deserve this. It's been kind of a few lean years for the Bears, so I hope he comes through.
I desperately want to see San Francisco at Chicago in the NFC title game. I want to see that one in the worst friggin' way. Obviously, I don't think you could drop the deck of cards, especially in the NFC, down on the table. I don't think you could drop the deck of cards down on the table in either conference right now and pull a bad hand. I think any of what we have left in the Super Bowl, I think, is very compelling in a million different ways. What's not compelling is how the hell the U.S. Olympic hockey team is going to deal with Canada's first line, which very likely could be Macklin Celebrini, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, Nate McKinnon, and Cale Makar. Good luck with that shit. We're going to get into that more next week. Final word from you.
I can tell you who's probably not going to be on that line, and that's Braden Point. I'm going to talk about him in the next couple of days, but that was brutal. That was brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So tomorrow, Lunchtime Live, Mac and myself will be back in the normal fold next week, but tomorrow, Lunchtime Live, same bat time, same bat channel. For for everybody behind the scenes, I'm Mike. You know the drill. Lunchtime tomorrow. We'll be here. We're out.